RogueCon 23. That's right. It is here. It's not back. It's here. It's the first one. Join the ultimate celebration of digital content with its creators, passionate fans, and industry experts. It is all happening in downtown Waco across multiple venues, January 20th through the 22nd of 2023. Now, if you want to go, you got to get tickets, and tickets are on sale at RogueCon23.com. That's RogueCon, RogueCon 23.com. Be there. I'm going to be there. Everybody's going to be there. Let's go.
Hey y'all, I'm April.
And I'm Caroline.
And this
is your Bloody Happy Hour.
Caroline, are you ready for this?
This is your newest guilty pleasure.
It's the bloodiest part of your week.
Did we say something about it also being happy hour?
Show did.
Because we about to be sipping on some murder. Bloody Happy Hour.
Here we go. Hey y'all, this is April.
And this is Caroline.
And we have a guest. April.
Oh my gosh. Two Aprils.
Two Aprils.
Number
Girl,
one.
one cup.
Number two.
Yeah, we're always April number one and number two. So let me introduce April. So it's April. We went to school together. One of my best friends. We have the same-ish birthday and the same middle name. Say yay.
Wait, y'all's birthdays are coming up then.
In a minute.
Is it in April?
In April.
Are you really? For real?
For real.
Both of them are in April?
She's the 3rd and I'm the 5th.
It's a lot. That's a lot to deal with during that month.
So it's St. Patrick's Day, y'all, when we're recording this, and me and April have a tradition of going to drink green beer at George's. So we're filming Ted Bundy first because it's her fave. And,
It's your fave?
Yeah. And her kids and her husband's.
Oh my gosh. I hope I do it justice.
Um,
Also, can we tell them that this is a video too?
yeah, our very first.
I don't know if we're supposed to look at each other or
I don't
like
know either.
camera or if this is going to go anywhere like that people can watch. I don't know.
So, I don't know. Maybe this is just our practice. So, we're videoing.
It's true.
So, coming to y'all soon, you will be able to see Bloody Happy Hour on video. We'll tell y'all how to see that when we know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you get some new
Dudes?
Hey dudes?
I did.
Look how crusty and old mine are. They're old. Yours are looking real good.
These are new. My brother gets them like almost half off. So, he brought me 2 pair the other
I
day.
need your brother to get me some. $25? What a deal.
That's a deal.
Well, maybe not half off. Maybe 40%. It's like 35.
That's fine. I will deal with that.
So, tell them what you're drinking. What's your St. Patty's Day drink?
Okay, so I'm drinking some margarita stuff. So it's margarita mix and tequila.
So your drink is green?
Yes, I don't want to get pinched.
I am drinking Crown Royal Green Apple.
Green apple.
But it's not green, but the bottle's green, so that counts.
I mean, it's called green apple.
Yeah, good enough. April, what are you drinking?
I'm basic. I have
Oh, she's a basic.
beer in a green cup, though.
That counts.
Counts.
That counts.
Home Shack.
I was so close.
Thank you to Home Shack for our setup.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
Yeah, I'm probably pee on it here soon. All I could just cough or laugh.
Which we found out that's exactly what your mom does, so it's good stuff right there.
It is what it is. Can you tell them
Wait,
what
are
you're
you-
watching?
Oh, I really haven't been watching anything except for Ted Bundy. Because I've like been immersed into him.
You even thought he was following you one day.
He was.
He was.
I mean,
I saw
yeah. He literally,
slide bug.
if you don't follow us on Instagram, that's disappointing. You should start because there was a beige, brown, tan VW bug behind me 2 days ago. Clearly, that was Ted Bundy because that's what he drives.
Shack.
Home Shack.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, thank you.
5 minutes late. That's okay. So I've been watching that, and that's really all.
Did you watch the movie that the High School Musical boy played him and he killed it?
I watched it when it came out.
Yeah.
Years ago.
He killed it.
I've mainly been doing watching like confession stuff, like his confessions and his interviews, like,
Yeah.
and then like the books, and there's a couple of people who I've Yeah, it's been a lot.
April, are you binging anything right now?
I got nothing.
Nothing?
I don't like to read. I'd rather somebody else just.
Oh,
tell
I
me
don't
about
read, but
no,
what did watch?
binging on TV, watching.
It. Oh,
The Worst Roommate?
the worst roommate.
Oh my goodness. We did talk about that.
I haven't watched it yet, but I heard about the grandma and I heard about the squatter.
Listen, if you haven't watched it, it's a really quick series. Go and watch it. It's really good. You'll never get a roommate again. I immediately messaged Caroline and I was like, do not get a roommate.
I was like,
you
what?
almost had a squatter type situation. You already had 2 bad roommates.
I've had horrible roommates.
One was your husband.
One
The
was my
other was
husband.
just, I don't know.
But who looks for roommates on Craigslist anymore?
I don't know.
I don't know why anybody would look for anything on Craigslist unless you're going to like dark web, backdoor Craigslist where you're looking for prostitutes and drugs.
Yeah.
That would be the only thing I would think to look for on Craigslist.
Yeah, that's it. I don't even think I knew it was still around.
Well, but
Same.
this was a while back when Craigslist was the one of the only, I guess, onlyest of
Now it's
those
like
search
Ratchet.
engines. Now we don't touch it. But back then, at one point, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
It was the only way to search for
Actually, when I was trying to sell
buy
my
an
Jeep,
ass
I did
or
put it on.
couch.
Yeah, a couch that's been like
Peed on.
peed on
yeah.
and like, you know, sexed on and all this stuff with the
But
stains.
it's free.
But it's free. By the way, my mom called me earlier this week. Did I tell you what she said? She was trying to get me to go somewhere, and I was like, oh, whatever. And she's like, all you do is sit at home and do puzzles and watch those murder shows in the dark in your dark house. And I was like, first of all, my house is not dark, and I sometimes sit outside. That's all I had to say.
You stand corrected.
So, bitch, please. I just can't.
That's funny.
Okay.
At least those are healthy things.
I mean, I felt.
You're not doing cocaine.
I'm not telling you every single thing I do.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, going to Blacksville.
exactly. I mean, come on.
I am mouth-watering for some Teddy.
Wait,
Ted.
did you want to tell your one little last thing about our newest listener?
Oh.
Our newest, youngest listener.
I just found out our youngest listener. If you're a listener that's younger than 14, then you'll be our youngest listener. But my cousin called me today and said that his daughter, Sophie, loves true crime, wants to have a career as CSI investigator, and wanted to hear some true crime podcasts. So now she thinks her cousin April is famous. So I'm shouting out to Sophie. And Sophie, get all your friends to subscribe and listen.
Yeah, be a good role model.
Yep.
I still don't know where I'm supposed to look.
Tell everybody to don't trust anybody.
This story about Ted Bundy will emphasize that fact of don't trust anybody.
Okay.
Even if they're good looking.
Especially.
And that's the worst because they're so unassuming.
That's the first red flag.
Yeah.
Well,
Good looking, red flag, something's wrong.
White, male, good looking.
And who was my first husband?
Literally Ted Bundy.
Literally, that's exactly how April described him. Okay, so we're doing Ted Bundy.
Okay.
I just have to start off with this clip. I can't resist it.
Okay.
Let's see if it's in there. I'm going to do the...
Okay, I just said that the Hawkins girl's head was severed and taken up the road about 25 to 50 yards and buried in a location about 10 yards west of the road on a rocky hillside. Did you hear that? How do you found damage to the head?
Okay.
The jaw in particular.
I'm going to play the rest of that clip in a little bit, but that's just a little piece of Teddy.
Is that why you used to whisper when we first started our podcast?
What are you talking about, April? That's just how I talked.
Okay. I'll bring it up when we get there.
So this is a little pregame. During the summer and spring of 1974, police were in a panic women across colleges in Washington and Oregon were disappearing. Crazy. They were just going missing. So there were a few leads, but in just 6 months, 6 women had been abducted. And it reached the high point when Janice Ott and Denise Naslin disappeared in broad daylight at a crowded beach at Lake Sammamish. I love saying Lake Sammamish. These abductions would lead to the first real break in the case. The day that Ott and Naslin vanished, several other women remembered being approached by a man who tried and failed to lure them to his car. They told authorities about an attractive young man with his arm in a sling, that his vehicle was a brown or beige Volkswagen Beetle, so a bug, and the name that he gave the women was Ted. So after releasing the description to the public, police were contacted by 4 people who identified the same Seattle resident as Ted Bundy. So he actually described himself to Ann Rule as the most cold-hearted son of a bitch you'll ever meet.
Wow.
So let's go back to his early life. Do you know much about his?
So, I've read the book, but it's been a long time. I did a little bit of a touch-up, a couple, when we knew we were going to do serial killers, but I haven't heard the whole story in a while.
Do you know about his?
It's been a
Same.
while.
Yeah.
So I known about just surface. Even when you first brought him up, because when you said I was married to Ted Bundy,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, who's that?
Nobody else in the world would ever say that.
So I knew, and then eventually I knew some things, but when you dive deep, and there's a lot about him. And this is why this is going to be at least a 2-part series, because you can't leave stuff out.
Can't skimp on Teddy.
You can't. He's probably the most, if he was compared to the Jack the Ripper.
I think he's the most popular.
Because of how he would go about getting them and how he would get so many people, because they wouldn't be scared of him. He wasn't scary.
Yeah.
And I thought I was like, he's not even that scary. But then when you go and you get in, know him, he's the scary. I mean, he's awful.
Yeah.
Horrible. Super scary.
And so he made people used to, it would be like stranger danger, right? Or, you know, but really it's not even, because he's good looking. He's somebody that you would trust.
Because people knew to look, they knew that there was this guy out there who was hunting women, and they knew not to be alone out at night, especially if they're in college on campus, and they knew. But he was so unassuming, and he would go to the younger ones who would, everybody was so polite. And if this guy is walking around and he has a sling or he has crutches and he just needs help carrying a briefcase or a book, you're oh yeah, let me just help you. Mm-hmm. But would you help him? Not anymore.
Don't help anybody.
So early life. So he's good looking. He's extremely evil. Not Dirty Chad. Don't get it twisted. But a close relative, Ted Bundy. He was born Theodore Robert Cowell, November 24th, 1946, to Eleanor Louise Cowell. So she goes by Louise. And she was an unwed teen mom, which was extremely shameful back in the day. And she was sent to the Elizabeth Lund Home for Unwed Mothers. So his father's identity has never been confirmed, but his birth certificate lists a guy named Lloyd Marshall as his dad. Now, Lloyd was like, nah, bro, he's not mine.
Yeah.
I ain't trying to do that. So then Louise was she claimed that she was seduced by some war veteran and that his name was Jack Worthington, who apparently abandoned her after she became pregnant with Ted. So unfortunately, they were never able to confirm that Jack ever existed. And so once Louise had returned home from this like teen mom shame camp or whatever, that they had made an arrangement to where Ted was to be told that his grandparents were his parents and that his mom, Louise, was his older sister.
Okay.
Got all that?
Yeah.
So the grandparents told people in town that Ted was adopted from an orphanage because they needed a story to tell people. And there were also rumors that Ted might be fathered by Louise's own father, Samuel Cowell. So that would be some incest.
So she's sister mama.
Sister mom. Yes.
Mm.
Okay. So,
What
but
if he had a little bitty penis like tiramisu?
oh my gosh.
Ew.
Like
That little pencil.
pencil dick.
Remember? Yeah.
Ting, 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 ting.
Could be.
So, but there's no evidence to support this. This is just what people assume or think or have come up with. So the first 3 years of his life, he lived in Philadelphia with his grandparents who raised him as their son. He eventually discovered the truth, and I've heard two different stories. I've heard that one of his cousins showed him a copy of his birth certificate, called him a bastard. They were like, oh, hey, this is what's really happening in your life. But according to the book, with Anne Rule's book, she said, which I'll tell you more about her in a little bit, she knew Ted Bundy personally, and she believed he didn't find out until 1969 whenever he located his birth record in Vermont. And like Ted had expressed like resentment towards his mom for never talking to him about his real father and for leaving him to find out the truth all by himself. So it's either one of those, like I said, multiple.
And it's crazy. One, teen pregnancy was that big of a deal. Now we like watch it on shows all the
Yes,
time.
teen
It's a
mom.
big deal. Yeah. And it like now we have daycares in high school so that these teen moms can come to school and their kids can go to daycare at the same school. Like it just happens all the time. But the fact that he found out he was a bastard, and which is the term they used then,
Yeah.
and it was a big deal.
Yeah.
A big
Yeah,
deal. Where
yeah.
now it's like half the kids don't have to,
Yeah.
single moms all the time.
Times are going to change.
Yeah.
So Bundy spoke very well of his grandparents. I mean, he according Anne Rule, she says he identified with, respected, and clung to his grandfather. And other family members, however, say that Samuel Cowell was not such a good guy. Do you want to know? He was described as, quote, a tyrannical bully, a bigot who hated blacks, Italians, Catholics, and Jews. He would beat his wife, the family dog, and
One
he
thing-
would swing.
That's the one good characteristic he has.
He would swing neighborhood cats by their tails and throw them. I about died when I heard that because I was like,
no.
April's about to have a freak out whenever she hears about this cat.
That's
I mean-
probably what drew her to Ted.
Was that he would swing the cats by the,
daddy.
tails?
Yeah, it really wasn't the serial killer stuff. It was the cats. She was like,
If you
yep,
hate
he's my
cats, I
favorite.
love you.
Listen, we know April does not like cats, but that still doesn't mean you need to abuse them and swing them by their tails. Cats have lives too. Cats' lives matter too, April.
Oh, I didn't know.
So also what he did was he also threw Louise's, Ted's mom, sister down the stairs before because she overslept. So he is real mad about everything. And he was real ratchet. But Bundy described his grandmother as a timid, obedient woman, which, I mean, if she lives with that crazy ass, then, you know.
be.
So apparently she periodically underwent electric shock therapy for her depression, and she feared that, like, she feared to leave her house towards the end of her life. So basically,
Agoraphobic.
yeah. What is it called?
She became an agoraphobic.
Agoraphobic? What's
Where
that?
you have a fear of leaving the house.
Oh shit! Maybe that's what I'm talking about.
Oh,
I'm
you
starting
and
to
your
become
puzzles.
agoraphobic. That's what my mom's trying to tell me. So in review, Ted was lied to about his entire parental situation. His grandpa was an abusive asshole, and his grandma was slowly losing her mind, and she was receiving electric shock treatment for depression. So it's going really well for him so far.
Nice.
Yeah.
Win-win so far.
Yeah. So one fun fact about Ted Bundy's childhood is that he did show a little bit of disturbing behavior in his early age. His aunt Julia woke up one morning from a nap, and her bed was surrounded by knives. Do you remember this? It he had placed a bunch of knives either around her bed or on her bed or something like that, and she woke up and he was just standing there just like laughing.
Wow.
I don't know. He was only 3 years old. Apparently.
Oh my
I was like, where's he getting it? I don't know.
I did remember that something happened when he was 3, and I was like 3.
Yes, when he's 3. First of all, why you have all these knives?
Sigmund Freud says everybody is born with the urge to kill, but when things happen to you at a young age, those urges come out more.
Okay, so the clip that I'm going to play for you in just a minute with Anne Rule is she gives her her kind of like idea of what happened. She thinks that I didn't read this or realize this, but she think like that his mom left the teen mom home or whatever, left him there for a few months, went back to live with the grandparents, and then the grandparents were like, you need to go back and get him, because she was just going to leave him there. So apparently he was there for a few months without having like without being like held and without having that. And it's like a 3-minute clip, so she talks about it, which was interesting.
Those basic needs.
Yeah, because you're thinking like when you're that young, like what is that? What does that do? But I guess if you're not swaddled,
Yes, skin.
you know what?
That's why everybody should breastfeed.
But yeah, but do you need to have skin to skin when you're 37? Because I'm not having no skin to skin, April. So maybe that's
but you got it when you were younger.
Yeah, but now it's probably
that's why you're a robot, because you didn't remember you were kidnapped, so you probably didn't get it either.
Exactly. So it's all my mom's fault.
She should have swaddled you when she kidnapped you.
Listen, people don't be swaddling. So in 1950, Louise left Philadelphia with Ted. So she's with Ted, she has her baby. And then a year later, she meets Johnny Culpeper Bundy.
Wait, she had to go back? She had another kid in the teen home?
No, that was just side notes.
Oh, okay.
So remember we talked about his grandparents and all the things he did, and like the grandma's losing her mind, she's going to this treatment, and now we're fast forwarding to 1950.
Okay.
So this is whenever she takes Ted and they move to Philadelphia. They move there. She meets a guy, Johnny Culpeper Bundy. He's like a hospital cook, and they get married. Okay. And this is when he adopts Ted.
He had no idea what he's getting.
He did not. So Johnny and Louise had 4 kids of their own, and he would try to include Ted in like all the things that they did, camping trips, family activities, but Ted was distant. He was like, I don't think so. He didn't like him because he didn't think he was smart, intelligent, and he didn't make much money. This'll come up. So when he was in high school, Ted, he wasn't super popular, but he wasn't unpopular. He was just like average. Mm-hmm. Some of his former classmates said that he was like withdrawn, kind of awkward, but because he was like unable to understand interpersonal relationships. So he was wanting to be somebody he wasn't. He didn't know how to like socialize with people very well. He wasn't athletic, so he didn't have that, and I just think he didn't have a lot in common. He wasn't number one in the class, so he wasn't the smartest. He didn't go to the dances. He didn't go party. He wasn't like wild. He just didn't have a natural sense of how to develop friendships.
Yeah. Would you say all of our serial killers so far have that in common? None of them were naturally like social.
Yeah, like socially awkward.
Yeah, they're very socially awkward.
Which is interesting because I didn't think, my preconceived idea of Ted Bundy wasn't this.
In the beginning, but
Yeah.
he develops, I think.
Yeah, he does, because he learns how to fake it,
Mm-hmm.
because he becomes a con.
Yeah.
So he said, quote, I didn't know what made people want to be friends. So I don't know. He just
Yeah.
didn't know. He didn't know the underlay of social interactions. That's what he said. So apparently, also to make matters worse, he had a speech impediment.
Oh.
He just had a little stutter, which he would occasionally be teased by his classmates. We all have some speech impediments. Fine. Mine was already gone by then. So in 1967, he started at University of Washington. This is where he met Diane Edwards. Okay, so here's the thing about all these people. They have a lot of pseudonyms, fake names.
Uh-huh.
So in the
Oh, yeah.
she goes by Stephanie Brooks. She's also
Stephanie
a
is
lot of
one
these people are referred to by different names. Like, I think another one I'm going to tell you has like 3 different names they're referred to by, because they didn't come out and reveal who they were. I mean, I think his other girlfriend, who he was with for about 6 years, she just came out in her in
Daughter.
2020.
Yeah, and she's the one that had the
Revealing, her daughter Molly, and revealed about their stuff. So you might hear some different names, but his very first one, Stephanie or
I know it's
Diane, I
Stephanie.
call Stephanie Diane.
Uh-huh.
I'll go by Stephanie,
Okay.
because that seems like that's the most known.
Yeah.
So Stephanie Brooks, she came from a wealthy political family. She had long, dark hair parted down the middle. I tried to part my hair down the middle today just for Ted. Memory. And Ted was obsessed with politics, wealth, possessions, power, and overall status.
Yes.
Okay?
He's a big Republican one.
Big Republican. He was all about image. He wanted to be perceived as someone who had status, and he knew he couldn't measure up to he couldn't measure up to what Stephanie was, because she actually came from money and wealth, and he knew he couldn't provide her with buying her gifts and doing all these things for her, taking her to nice dinners, because he didn't have the money.
Yeah.
But he had the smarts kind of behind it. So he couldn't give her like the material items that he thought she wanted. Whether she wanted them or not, that's what he thought. But he was completely like infatuated, in love with her, everything. So because she had all the qualities. She had beauty, she had wealth, she was smart, and had like a political family. So she was a couple of years older than him. They dated for a couple of years, and then it was time for her to graduate, and he still had years left. And so she was like, well, I actually have to move away, so
Deuces.
Bye. And she broke up with him, and this was like a major hit to old Ted. So she said he lacked ambition and was immature.
Yeah.
So Ted was super depressed. He is devastated, and apparently this event was pivotal
It's like his stressor.
in his
Determined.
development. And he dropped out of University of Washington. He worked random minimum wage jobs. He volunteered on some presidential campaigns. And a few months later, okay, so he's going through this thing. It's awful. He doesn't know what to do, but he eventually picks himself up. He gets re-energized. He's refocused, and he's ready to go. He re-enrolls in the same school he just dropped out of.
Okay.
So he's back at University of Washington, and now he's going to be a psychology major.
Ooh.
So he chose psychology for a reason. He ain't dumb. He's going so he can learn how to con and to manipulate people. And he was so focused on, I think at this point, he was wanting to, I think he was planning at this point to kind of aim things at towards Stephanie. That's
Plotting,
kind
like
of
some revenge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and in the past, whenever he was at school, like he wasn't a A student, he wasn't honor. Well, now he's an honor student. Like he's done really well. The professors and the teachers are like, oh, he's like, they would give him props, all these things. So he's doing good now, right?
Yeah.
He's doing good. So that was 1967. All right. Stephanie comes, she goes, it's 1969. So this is whenever he's re-enrolled, and now he meets Liz Kendall. Second
Okay.
one.
Okay.
Her real name is Elizabeth Clofer. I don't know how to say it. She also goes by Meg Anders and Beth Archer, or those are the names that have been used. These are so random names. So she's a single mother. She's from Utah. She has a 3-year-old at the time. She worked as a secretary at the University of Washington School of Medicine. And when they started dating, the daughter Ted became a father figure for the daughter. And they had a 6-year relationship. It's a very tumultuous relationship, up and down. Lots of stuff happened in here.
Yes.
So she admitted in that Prime series that she was on that she became, okay, this is so interesting. She became very dependent on Ted. She said, I handed my life to Ted and said, here, take care of me. Like she wanted to be taken care of, which I can relate.
Yeah.
She became more and more dependent on him. She said that they would be getting along 1 minute, and then the next minute he's like slamming the door. Like she would spend hours trying to figure out what did she do wrong when she did nothing wrong, and then he would suddenly like be warm and loving and give her attention, and that's what she wanted. She needed and craved that attention from him. And even though it's almost like there's the bad times, but the good times always override the bad times.
Yeah.
So you always go back to, oh, well, I did feel needed for and I felt cared for. And so let me just focus on that.
Yeah.
So 1974. So they've been dating for about 5 years. And she started to get suspicious of Ted. And this was mainly after she started seeing a few news reports. There was some people getting murdered, some people getting raped, and 2 of these women were in the Seattle area. So apparently witnesses had mentioned the name Ted, and they mentioned Volkswagen Bug, and she said she kind of was like, oh, I think that sounds familiar.
Yeah.
But April, love makes you do crazy things.
Oh, God.
So Liz was reluctant to believe that her boyfriend could be a cold-blooded killer.
So 40 other women die.
Listen,
wanted to
it
be
wasn't
cuddled
40
at
at that
night.
time. She needed that skin to skin. According to her biography, she questioned Ted about some of his strange behaviors. For example, apparently she found a bowl of women's underwear, a bunch of bandages, casts that he would wear,
Yes.
pretending to lure in his victims, a knife in his car, and that some nights he would have driven like hundreds of miles. One night she said he drove to Colorado. He had said he drove to Colorado to de-stress. Okay. So, but every time he used his intelligence and his charm to convince her that everything was normal, and she believed him. But then she finally, I don't know what the last straw was, she finally became so suspicious that she did go to the police. And we'll bring this back in a little bit whenever she like called a tip line. Remember the tip line, because I'll bring that up in a little bit. And she had tried to turn him in, but at that time there wasn't enough evidence on him. Like that, the stuff that she had at that time, it wasn't it couldn't place him,
Yeah.
you know,
Okay.
with the stuff. So, and it was like 4 years later. I'm kind of jumping back and forth, but like this is 1974. But then she says 4 years later in 1978, she remembered that he had called her from prison. Spoiler alert, if you don't know, he goes to whatever prison.
She's starting from the end and going back
Yeah.
to the beginning.
So
Working backwards.
I know it just went with it. So like he had admitted that he did try to kill her,
Oh.
Liz, which I had no idea. She said that he called her. He said, I tried to kill you. Like he closed off the chimney in their house and lit the fire, and that he would hope that the fire would slowly kill her, like the poisonous fumes from the
Yeah.
fire. But it's weird because he goes back and he says he didn't, anybody who he met
Must've
or
been
that he
gas.
knew longer than 20 minutes, he wouldn't try to kill somebody who he really got to know.
Yeah.
So, but at times, his murder, like the evil Ted would come out of him, because there was also another time, which Anne Rule talks about in the book, that Liz says they were like on a river or a lake, and they were on a little boat, and either the boat flipped over or something, and he tried like put her head down underwater multiple times, and she was kind of like, what? And when she looked at him, she saw him, was like, just didn't look like him.
His eyes
like
went
yeah,
black.
the eyes go black, and he had this weird look, and it wasn't him, and it was like you were with Ted Bundy the murderer at that point,
Yeah.
not with the Ted Bundy you knew. So that's so great. Like, what is that? That isn't something
Just
to do
the
with.
urge to want somebody to die is just crazy to me.
But like, even when people describe like your switch,
Uh-huh.
like what is, like, that's not, you don't get that because have like a weird childhood issue. I mean, like, what is that?
I don't know.
So deep. So I know I've jumped a lot, but we were talking about 1974, and I'm going to go back again to 1971.
Okay.
But this is whenever Anne Rule worked with Ted.
Yes.
So Anne Rule is the author of the book,
Amazing true
The
crime
Stranger
author.
Beside Me, and she worked at Seattle Suicide Hotline Crisis Center. And also Ted Bundy worked there. So that's where they met. They met at the suicide hotline. Basically, they would answer the phones for people who are wanting to commit suicide and talk them down from committing suicide. So Ted's trying to save lives. At the same time, he is killing people. But in 71, he wasn't on his tumultuous rampage. So in 74, y'all better get your notes out, get your pens out, and get ready, because 1974 is his year.
Okay.
That is whenever he goes beyond. However, there's other murders previous that aren't necessarily like, they're not known to be like, they're assumed or whatever.
Okay.
They think that he murdered this time and this time and this time, but they don't know for sure, because whenever he was confessing, he never
fully-
really like, you had to pull it out of him. They had to pull it out
That's
of him.
what I didn't like about him.
Yeah, that's why he was so annoying. But I'll give you more on that because I got so much. So he met Anne Rule, worked alongside of her, and at the time, so she was an aspiring. She previously worked as a police officer for Seattle. I did not know that she was a police officer. And then she was an aspiring crime writer, which obviously she wrote several amazing books. And this book that she wrote was a biography on Ted Bundy. And so what's interesting is that she said she never saw any disturbing things out of him. She described him as kind and compassionate and empathetic, and that their job is just what it sounds like. It is to talk people down from committing suicide, and he was really good at it.
Really good at it.
Really good at it. And
They're so good with their mouths and their words.
yeah, girl. But she actually ended up becoming like close friends with him. They would go out to lunch. They would hang out like after work, outside of work, and they even kept in touch like years down the road, even after the murders and stuff. Because I think she was so shocked. She just didn't see it, didn't expect it. She was like, "There's no way that my friend did all these horrible things to these people."
You know, that's my dream. I'm actually jealous of Anne Rule.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean,
I just wish somebody I knew and was close to would be a serial killer, and they would only talk to me. And then I'm the one that has to write a book because I got all the info.
I'm not surprised. I think, maybe
hey,
one
all
day.
my friends, one of you, don't kill anybody I know.
Am I the closest one to the craziest person?
You're on my top 5 possibles.
So this is another really strange thing, and I'm about to play this clip, but he would even walk her out to the car at night, like after work, and he would be like, "Hey, make sure you lock your doors. We don't want anything to happen to you," and like just would kind of take care of her and like watch out for her. And she was like, "Well, why didn't he want to ever do anything to me?"
She felt bad. How come she was a big girl though, wasn't she?
Oh, she talks about it because it's like
I would probably been like that. Why the hell didn't he kill me?
He had a certain type, and she didn't fit the type of the people that he went after.
Got it.
Because they were young college co-eds with dark hair with the part down the middle.
Well,
so this is, and then let's play this, and then we can take a break.
oops.
Just for safety's sake for a long time.
When you wrote the book Stranger Beside Me about Ted Bundy, use your own name, obviously.
I did, yeah.
Okay. Just the fact that this is a guy, as you mentioned earlier, that treated you very well.
Yes.
Liked you, was protective of.
I think so. You know, he had, his victims had to be someone he didn't know. He told Bob Keppel, the detective,
longtime detective,
once that if he talked to them, a woman, for more than 20 minutes, then she was no good as a victim, because victims had to just be objects. He didn't want to have any emotional connection. So I probably was as safe as in my mother's arms. Also, he liked slender co-eds with long dark hair parted in the middle. Well, I haven't been slender since I was 4. and I have red hair, which is slowly turning to silver. So I think he liked me, but I think he also used me. He certainly did later on. He wanted to use me as a conduit to the TED task force up here, because he didn't want to talk to them directly, but he wanted to send messages.
Did you ever figure this guy out?
I think, this is what I think. I think Ted was a child of incest. I think his grandfather, who had a maniacal temper, was really his father. There have been a couple of men's names bandied around as having been his father, but his mother didn't date anybody. And when she went to the Elizabeth Lund Home for Unwed Mothers in Vermont, the minister's wife took her. So say he was a child of incest, then those traits, that predisposition to violence, would explode exponentially. And he was left at the Home for Unwed Mothers for 4 months. And babies know, even that young, that they're not wanted. They fail to attach. They really need to be cuddled, and I carried mine around all the time. So there was that. Then she married Johnny Bundy, and he didn't seem to like his stepfather, and he had 4 half siblings. So I think it was a number of things. He may have been molested as a child. I don't know, but the only time I saw him behave strangely was he'd get so jealous if he thought his girlfriend was dating someone else. Then when he talked about it, the sweat would just bead up on his face and he'd get that expression. But he had good in him too, but it was far overpowered by this addiction, and I call it an addiction to murder.
Wow.
How about that?
She nailed him.
Nailed him.
RogueCon 23. That's right. It is here. It's not back. It's here. It's the first one. Join the ultimate celebration of digital content with its creators, passionate fans, and industry experts. It is all happening in downtown Waco across multiple venues, January 20th through the 22nd of 2023. Now, if you want to go, you got to get tickets, and tickets are on sale at RogueCon23.com. That's RogueCon, RogueCon 23.com. Be there. I'm going to be there. Everybody's going to be there. Let's go.
Hi, I'm Hank. You might remember me from a show called King of the Hill. Check out a King of the Hill rewatch podcast. These boys ain't right, but they are funny. Find the podcast anywhere you get your podcasts or at roguemedianetwork.com. I tell you what.
After graduating from University of Washington in 1972, he threw himself into politics. This is crazy. He was appointed to the Seattle Crime Prevention Advisory Committee. It's not safe to do that with Ted Bundy. He was eventually hired as an assistant to this guy called Ross Davis, which this guy was part of the Washington State Republican Party. And this Davis described Ted as like smart and aggressive, and he was a believer in the system and blah, blah, blah. And then in early 73, Ted was accepted into Seattle University Law School and University of Utah.
Yeah.
And there's also this Puget Sound School that I hear. There's a lot of law schools.
I think Utah and the Seattle were the biggest.
So what happened was his LSAT scores were not like high enough for him to get into these law schools, but he had like recommendation letters from these political people who were like high, who were like high society. And so even though he was like embarrassed and like upset with himself, he was like real mad at himself for not being able to get in. He was able to get in by way of these letters and stuff. So he'd been working for several university psychology professors, and then like later in the summer, he ended up taking a trip to California for Republican Party stuff. And this is whenever he happened to rekindle his relationship with Stephanie Brooks.
Oh.
So he's been dating Liz for 5 or so years at this point. Remember, Stephanie dumped him years ago because he was immature, and
he's had a chip on his shoulder ever since.
He's had a chip on his shoulder ever since. But this now was a total, what I call a total TT. What is TT, April?
I don't know.
Total transformation.
Yeah.
This is a TED transformation.
Okay.
Because now he's graduated from college. He's working in politics. He's in law school. He looks like a serious, dedicated professional.
He's proven himself to her.
Stephanie is all about this TED life. Get it?
Yeah.
So he's just like, oh, like, look at me. And then they start to rekindle their relationship.
And so a lot of people think that like that motivated him to do all that. Like that rejection from her, and that this was like part of his plot. Are you getting to that? Like,
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
It was.
Okay.
Because he's looking like he's a serious, dedicated professional guy. He's on the road. He's gonna either have a like really good law career, or he's gonna be have a political career. He's gonna be a governor. He's gonna be something.
Yeah.
So yes, he's still dating Liz. Neither one of them know about each other. Okay, so I'm gonna stop giving dates. But fall of 1973, he flew into Seattle several times to go hang out with Stephanie, and they actually discussed marriage, and he even introduced her to some of his political friends as his fiance.
Okay.
So let's go with this date, January 1974. 1974, this is the year. This is his year.
His year.
This is his year. He officially, so he's telling people he's engaged to Stephanie. He's telling his political friends, whatever. They're like really hitting it off. She's like, oh my gosh, Ted's changed. I'm all about Ted. Let's go. Well, he ghosts her. Ghosted.
So did he ever?
For a month. No calls, no letters.
Okay.
Ghosted. She's like, what the heck? What's going on? Haven't talked to him. He's not answering my phone calls. He's gone.
Okay.
No explanation. Finally, they get a hold of each other, and she's like, where are you? Why have you not answered my calls? And he basically is like, Stephanie, I have no idea what you mean. And hung up because he
Is that gaslighting?
wanted to prove to himself that he could get her again. And then he wanted to do to her what she did to him.
And leave her.
So that's what he said.
Did it read that he ever actually proposed and let her say yes and then ghosted?
I didn't know that.
Okay. I listened to a podcast a while back, and I remember that he did all this to propose for her to say yes, and then
Well,
bitch.
still
same revenge.
But like he would introduce her as fiance, so I would assume he had to have proposed.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, I guess that's probably right. Like once she said yes, then he was like, "Oh, I got her. I hooked her. Like now I'm gonna just bounce on her."
Yeah.
Like he just wanted to prove to himself that he could have married her, that he could have been with her, and like later Stephanie had said that like she's like he deliberately did this as like vengeance to get back for whenever I broke up with him. And you know, after that is when he started like skipping class and not going to class and basically just stopped attending class altogether.
He really didn't want to be a lawyer. He just did it for her.
At this point, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he just did it to prove to her.
So at this point, that's whenever all these women started to disappear. How about that? So we're in 1974. And I have some notes because this is what we know. In 74, he killed several people. And he may have killed some people in 72, may have killed some people in 73. But in this year, which I'm about to go through, he launched himself into unrelenting murder that he was never coming back from, and he was okay with that.
Okay.
So I did read another book, or I listened to another book. I think it's just the Ted Bundy murders. Keith Sullivan, maybe was his name, Kevin Sullivan, I can't remember. And he gave a really good like description of Ted. So at this point, he knew that he was. I'm quoting him, he knew that even though he was a law student, that he would never become a lawyer. He was never going to get married. He was never going to have kids, and he was going to continue murdering. Like that's where he was. He knew that he would keep doing it until he was captured or killed. Okay. So we're in 1974. He dumped Stephanie. She's gone. Ted's 27 years old. Some people actually believe that he started murdering in his teens, which he never actually admitted to, because he considered, whenever he murdered, he considered them his. And he
Didn't want to share.
And yeah, this was his thing. Detectives and law enforcement had to really pull it out of him. He wasn't forthcoming. And like I said, in some of his interviews, which I played earlier, he would do the Joe Biden whisper talk.
What does that do? That's so silly. The kids do that.
Well, they do?
Yeah, like
Right now?
yes. Like if something happened and you're asking them what happened and they don't really want you to know, they're kind of ashamed. They'll talk real low.
That's what
yeah.
Yes. They're like, well, what really happened was. It's like that's what a lot of people have said. He's so ashamed that he doesn't want to talk about it. A lot of times in these interviews with detectives, they figured out how to get stuff out of him by referring to him in the third person. They would go to him and they would say, okay, because they realized he was kind of boyish, and they would say, like, if you were Ted Bundy, I'd be like, hey,
if you were the killer.
April, if you were to do this, how would you do it?
Yeah.
And then he would say, well, if I was that person, I would have done this, this, and this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when he really, apparently kind of started really talking.
Yeah.
So he did these whisper talks. He would admit to some of the things he did. And then this is like Liz was getting suspicious all these times. Okay, so this is the first one, January 4th. He entered the apartment of Karen Sparks, 18 years old, student at University of Washington. He snuck into her room while she was sleeping. She woke up to him beating her with a metal rod from her own bed frame. Listen, this gets intense. She was sexually assaulted with her own bed rod. So he took a rod from her bed, and that's what he used to assault her. Not only did he beat her with it, he used it and he shoved it in her.
Oh, wow.
Okay. She had internal injuries. She was unconscious for 10 days, but she survived. Okay. I didn't know this till I did this. The extent of her injuries resulted in permanent brain damage. She had significant loss to vision, hearing, and the words that she said, this is how she described what happened. He came into my room, took a bed frame off of my bed, smashed my skull, and he probably used the same bed frame and smashed it into my vagina and into my bladder. My bladder was totally split. She said that it took nearly 20 hours for her roommate to discover her. And she said, Bob thought I was still sleeping. It was horrible for him to find me that way.
Who's Bob?
Bob's her roommate.
Oh.
She said, quote, I have a horrible ringing in my ears and it's constant. So she's still alive. She was on the Prime series, I think she was interviewed, and she can still talk. She can still talk coherent. She has epilepsy now, but she's like scarred.
Yeah.
Almost like, it's horrible.
Yeah.
Awful. So from there that was January 4th. And then we're on February 1st.
Okay.
Linda Ann Healy, 21 years old, from Seattle. Ted Bundy broke into her basement apartment room And she was also an undergraduate at University of Washington. She was she was a morning broadcaster, like at a radio station. So she would always get up early, go to work. She never, we get up early, go to camp. You don't make your bed, you just go, and then you come back, and then later you'll do that stuff. So she would do like the morning weather reports for skiers. So we broke into her room. She had 4 other roommates. 4 other roommates. And this was whenever it was like, the walls are paper thin. Like, how do you not hear anything? He used a crowbar, beat her unconscious. This is one that's one of the big ones. She starts bleeding. He takes off her nightgown that she's wearing, puts it in the closet, makes up her bed, and redresses her in jeans, a white shirt, and boots, and then carries her out the window, either the window or whatever is close to the stairs. And then when she no-showed at work is whenever they were like, oh gosh, like, where is she? And then she no-shows at work. They call the house, call the roommates. The roommates go into her room. They don't notice anything because they're like, well, I mean, her bed's made. Like, it looks fine. Like, I don't notice anything. And then they finally, when they call the police because they hadn't seen her in days. The police come. They open the bed, and that's when they notice the blood.
All the blood.
Soaked sheets, the blood. I mean, everything.
Wow.
And they're like, oh, my gosh. Eventually, her body was never found. Her skull was found. And in what would be later known as Bundy's graveyard, which was Taylor Mountain, which was the Taylor Mountain skeletons.
Oh, man.
And that's where we have to go to part. This is actually not going to be part 2, but
maybe put it in there just in case.
Last thing, if y'all go listen to Generation Y podcast, there's an interview with one of the guys. I think his name's Keith Sullivan, which I'm going to quote him a lot more next time. He wrote 2 books about him, Ted Bundy.
Wow.
And it's just, oh my gosh, it's so interesting. I'm going to go into it more, but
wow.
This could be whatever.
So,
2,
listen. You got to have your patience with Ted because he is so much. So you got his whole background, and it makes you understand like why they do what they do, who they choose to kill, why they kill, how they kill. Like, you can't skip over that. So your mouth is watering. Don't go watch anything. Don't go listen to another podcast.
Don't, because we're doing a deep dive. And listen, if there's any one episode to listen to, it's gonna be this one because I'm deep. She's deep.
Deep diving.
Maybe
you know what
because
happens?
I was like married to basically him, so I'm trying to figure it all out.
You know what happens when Caroline reads a book. Okay, y'all. April, you gonna be back with us for part 2?
I will.
She
All right.
needs some Ted.
She's gonna start it. You gotta finish it. Okay. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe.
Yes.
Everything. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Apple, Spotify.
Everywhere. Never forget to
Stay aware.
stay alive.
And always be DTF.
Bye, y'all. See you next week.
Bye.
This has been a Rogue Media podcast.
Join the ultimate celebration of digital content with its creators, passionate fans, and industry experts. It's all happening in downtown Waco across multiple venues on January 20th through the 22nd, 2023. Tickets are on sale now at roguecon23.com.
Hi, I'm Hank. You might remember me from a show called King of the Hill. check out a King of the Hill rewatch podcast. These boys ain't rap, but they are funny. Find the podcast anywhere you get your podcasts or at roguemedianetwork.com. I tell you what.